Go.
Senator Obama, we've got your back. Episode 4, take 20.
Oh, my God, tone. All right. So what I want to talk about this time is politicians. Now, there's basically three kinds. There's ones that use, and most of them actually are this kind, use a shiboleth. Now, what a shiboleth is, it comes from the Bible, but it means a word or phrase that people use to show that they're one of them. For example, in World War II, during the Battle of the Bulge, the Germans had taken some English-speaking soldiers of theirs, dressed them up in American MP uniforms, and dropped them behind American lines. And they sabotaged things and caused chaos and confusion during the battle. Now, the way they got caught is they were in a Jeep and they pulled up to some soldiers and they said, "Where can we get some petrol?" So obviously these guys knew, what? Petrol? These guys aren't Americans. And that's how they got caught. That's one of the stories. So there are some most politicians, they say these shibboleths. They'll say, their troops, honor our troops, support our troops. Or what are some other common things? You hear them all the time. American values, family values. We have to have family values. And tax cuts. Oh, that's a big one. Tax cuts, you know. And democracy. We have to have democracy. And all these things, they say these things, and people say, oh, yes, he's what we want. Then there's the next kind of politician who is the little next step up, and he can use inspiring, great speeches to inspire people. Roosevelt could do that. Senator Obama can do that. But there's a third of what makes a great statement is one who, as a leader, he can make people confront and deal with the real dilemmas of their time. Now, I personally believe Senator Obama can do that. For one thing, on his last speech about race, he talked to the American people like they were adults. And I know the media went all nuts about that, and they said, oh, it's great, he talked to the American people like they were adults. They should try it sometime, by the way, but that's another issue. But they talk to Americans like they're children, too. It remains to be seen if that's a smart thing to do, talk to Americans like they're adults. I think it is. But what are the great dilemmas of our time? Well, I'm not sure. I mean, there's some. Race is a problem. Maybe certainly, I think the worst thing is really our education. We have too many ignorant, and by ignorant I mean unaware politicians and people who can be fooled into voting for these politicians. Dr. Martin Luther King said, and he was talking back in the 60s, when he said we have guided missiles but misguided leaders. So let's put him on the thing, not only with inspiring speeches, but he certainly got us to face a dilemma. Education. Education is a problem in this country. You know, it's probably not an exaggeration to say that other people, especially Europeans, are surprised at how dumb and unenlightened we are, although we think of ourselves as smart and enlightened. We're certainly practical people. We're certainly practical. We can solve immediate problems, but we're not intelligent. As a group, we're not intelligent. So that's the problem. Education. Race, we got to deal with that. Economics. Our economics are, I think it was Keynes, I don't have the quote exact, but he said, you know, people, although they think they're smart, they follow the ideas of dead economists. And certainly our economic thinking is, well, it was good 100 years ago, but the time has passed for those ideas. And the government itself, how we administer things, and our institutions. You mean the U.S. government, the way it operates right now, most of the things that are in place now were set up in the 30s, in the 1930s. So we're talking at least 70 years old. It's outmoded. Who's got a TV that's 70 years old? Well, there aren't any. But who drives a car that's 70 years old, right? So we have to adapt. We have to adapt, and that means change our institutions, our universities. Every time the military doesn't adapt, we suffer dearly for it. Every time industry doesn't adapt, we suffer dearly for it. And we're not adapting. We're not adapting, you see. And so others are passing us by. I don't believe that the American workers, I still believe the American workers are the best in the world. And that's not just the shibboleth. I really do. I've not traveled all over the world, but enough to know that Americans work hard. You know? So it's not that we're lazy. I think we're more ingenious than most, but we work hard. But we're not getting our just rewards for our work. That's part of some of the false economic ideas, or I should say outdated economic ideas. So the reason I'm for Senator Obama is because I think so far he's the only one who has shown a willingness to talk to the American people as adults and start to confront some of the dilemmas that we're facing. And that's why I'm voting for him, because I think he can do the job.